What's up? What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Scream Scene. I'm Jody Dean. Today we got a treat for you. I got some filmmakers here that are doing filmmaking very uniquely. I would like to welcome them. Young sirs, if you could please tell us your names, where you're from, and what got you into filmmaking.
Sure, I'll go first. I'm Chad Bruns. I've been doing acting for about 10 or 12 years now. I started doing going to college for industrial engineering, and I do that. But then midway through, I kind of wanted to get into something more creative, and been in Pittsburgh, and the scene around here the past 10 years has really kind of picked up in terms of uh, production is coming into town, and then also just the indie scene has kind of increased. So started getting into that, and then after a while, if I found myself hitting a lull where I didn't think I was getting to play parts I wanted to try or wanted to show off an idea, then I'd sort of do a film here and there. And kind of hooked up with Zane along the way. He's done a bunch of films, and I was in some of his, and then we kind of came together to collaborate on Forced to Fear.
That's awesome, man. Zane, so everybody knows the name on the screen is not his name. We were having a little difficulty, but he is there. The obscurity creates a little bit of a mystery, but go ahead.
Zane's wanted by the FBI, so he has to keep his picture from me.
Well, no connection to Diddy, by the way. Listen, guys, Zane, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Zane Hershberger, and I reign from Pittsburgh here, just like Chad. And I'm from actually the Harrisburg area, and I moved out here to get into film and that. I went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, and then really couldn't find any jobs for it. So I just started doing the stuff independently, and had a couple false starts, and then things started speeding up along the way. I met up with a gentleman by Justin Seaman, who's the director of The Barn, and after we did that, things just started to kind of steamroll after that. And I said I met Chad on a movie that we actually have out that just came out now called Cryptids, and that's where Chad and I first met. And then from him and I went sets of different other projects. He started pitching me ideas for Forced to Fear. So then we actually had the ability to do it because we actually had a free location, which was that school we filmed in down in Weirton, West Virginia. It was actually being used as like a haunted house, but we were able to get in there and film Forced to Fear, which was definitely an experience, doing like a martial arts movie instead of like a horror movie, which we normally do.
I loved it. So, whenever, excuse me, I was going down the rabbit hole a little bit, and I come across this Forced to Fear. I'm looking at all these clips and everything, and I love the way the sequences were put together and the fights. I love the music, the color, everything about it. Your location there. I felt like I was watching a 80s style video game that came to life, but it had an element there that just is undeniable. Just want it to be seen and heard about by more people. So I'm like, hey man, let's get these guys on here to talk about it. I mean, is the 80s film something that's a big passion of you guys?
Definitely mine.
Yeah, I'd say for both of us, but Zane definitely incorporates that in all of his productions to some level.
Yeah, that
was my era. I grew up in the 80s, watching a lot of, especially independent, like direct-to-video horror and martial, especially the martial arts movies. Watched a lot of that growing up.
I love the martial arts scenes. They look really, really cool, man. I mean, that's what it reminded me of instantly, was like just a fighting game almost, but there is a horror aspect to it, right?
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, there's definitely our main antagonist in there is definitely our more fighty slasher kind of character, and I think we started very much down the horror rabbit hole. We just found when we got to the end product that we were like, well, it's kind of like horror, and it's also kind of a thriller, and it's also kind of action, so it kind of gets coupled together in the three phases. So sometimes we describe it by the different variations.
Yeah, they just all kind of came together and made a baby, and it's Forced to Fear.
Yeah.
Funny enough, the look of what they call him, the target, is the main villain. I actually was inspired for him, putting him together from the cover of the movie The Wraith, which
Okay.
is a Charlie Sheen movie where he's like a ghost. It's kind of like High Plains Drifter, but they do it with cars. And he was killed, and he comes back, and he wears like this weird. He's like in like a weird space age suit with like this high tech car.
That's badass, man. Yeah, there was a few different things that were hitting me there, but I mean, it feels excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. It feels like something original though. Like, so there's a lot of originalness there. Obviously, you know, we're all influenced. It's hard to make a song without a G chord. But I thought you had some very unique characters. One thing that I every time I watch it or check anything out about it is the sound. What you guys did with the sound, you know, as far as making it feel like an 80s sound, and the music that you chose for the part. I mean, how much thought went into that?
It's definitely a vibe we wanted, and a lot of credit goes to Matt Cannon, who Zane had met on a prior film, and he just took on a large role in kind of creating that sound after we would send him clips of the scenes, and he'd be like, okay, I got a feel for this, and we loved it. And then Zane also hooked up with a band, Voltec, that does one of the main songs in the middle party scene there.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. So I mean, so far, how is the film being received for you guys? Are you finding some Force to Fear fans? Is there going to be a part 2 in the pipeline?
I think so. We had it out in a festival, and it did okay there. Got some exposure there, and then we've had it out for a couple years now, and it's done pretty well. The one thing that everybody seems to like is the fight scenes, and that's probably, as we, anytime you do a film, you kind of look back and say, oh, maybe I could have changed this here, or maybe I would have liked this here. But we feel pretty solid about how the fight scenes came together, and kind of felt that was kind of unique. I think the only thing that we've run into a little bit is because it does have that action and thriller element. Sometimes it gets brushed out of the horror realm for us a little bit, amongst other horror films.
I see. And just so you guys know, the FBI has officially stopped looking.
Yeah.
He's
we just got the notice.
I had to go quickly comb my hair, and I was like, all right, I think I look at least somewhat presentable.
Well, the cool thing about that is, or what I get from it, from a producer, filmmaker myself, outside looking in, is you have all the right elements there. So if there was a part 2, man, you could just go super gory and have that same element for part 1, and then bam, it just makes it a whole different animal, right?
Sure. I mean, there could definitely be a sequel made. It's just, it was a lot.
We've got some Zane's working on some. We're both involved in some other projects, right? So it could come about. It just won't be for probably a few more years, if so. But like I'm saying, there's definitely still some characters alive, and definitely some different ways to take the story if we wanted to.
Yeah. I think it's just such a. I think all the elements there are there to be greatness, and it is good. And I just hope more people check it out. So anybody that's watching this right now, I'll leave a link in the description below. Definitely check out the film. Where can they watch it at?
You can either buy it on Blu-ray at screenteamreleasing.com, or it's on Tubi. It's on Plex, I believe. Justin from Screen Team Releasing is trying to get it onto Fossum at the moment, so it might be able to be seen on there, but definitely on Tubi, definitely on Plex.
I think it's available for rent also on Amazon Prime, but I think it's free on Tubi and Plex. And then, if, like Zane said, on Scream Team Releasing, or at any of the horror conventions that Scream Team Releasing goes to, there's available copies of the Blu-ray, and on that, it's got the kind of extra features of how fight scene rehearsals, how they came
rehearsals,
behind the scenes looks,
bloopers, all kinds of stuff.
We had
and commentary.
Yeah, we had some interesting complications in that the building we used got bought out halfway through by a theater company, and they were, to their credit, cool enough to work with us and let us finish out the film. But like, they were like, at one point we'd walk in and be like, okay, we're gonna do this fight scene here, and we'd open up the gym and it was be set up for a Snoopy Christmas, and we'd be like, how are we gonna shoot around this?
It was a pain in the butt on that scene, because like originally we thought we'd have like 360 access to see around for the fights. So I basically had to cut that in half basically, and that was definitely a challenge.
Wow, dude, yeah, that sucks. I mean, the challenges we face, once we get there, like you can plan as much as you want, but when you get to the set and then you see these complications, the weather, so and so's late. Oh, we forgot the blood. It's always something when you're doing these films, man. I once in a while I catch a wave and it's just smooth sailing. You guys obviously go through that daily, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. Good.
I would probably say one of the hardest aspects would be scheduling. Scheduling is the bane of our existence.
We joked about, I always say, I wonder if in horror movies characters always split up because it's just easier to get two actors or one actor and schedule them. Because when we put together some scenes in there that have, like 6-person dialogue, and those days of getting everybody on the same page, getting them to West Virginia, and then also just the amount of coverage to do everybody's coverage on that was, we were like, maybe we should tweak this in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely get that, man. It is hard to get people. It's hard to count on people, man, for sure. And even if actors are doing this for a living or they're trying to do it for a living, there's always something, man. It's rare that it's ever smooth sailing. I did have it on my second feature film where I've just been blown away that it's just flowed like water. We haven't ran into a hiccup. It's the first time it's ever happened.
Nice.
Yeah, but the first one, nightmare. But it came out good. You guys know how it works, man. We always make it work as filmmakers.
Sure.
What are your guys' strengths as filmmakers, man? Who does what?
Well, I think Zane's very good on like the choreographing the fight scenes. I'd say like the actors, like I had a little bit of a fighting background, but nowhere near sort of like as the characters are portrayed. So Zane had a great eye for taking each actor, assessing what their background level of athleticism or fighting was, and then kind of building the scene around that person's strengths and weaknesses.
Because we had to train like at least 3 of the cast members in what they knew nothing. So I had to train them in martial arts for like months before we did this. And I just assessed what each person's strengths and weaknesses were, and then it just took it from there. Like one girl, she did a lot of like weight training and stuff. And she had like pretty built legs. And I was like, well, she's built like a dancer, basically. I'm like, well, you're a kicker, man. Like that's going to be your thing. And she did pretty good with that. Another actress, she was fine with the kicks, just not a dynamic kicker, like not really flexible. So I said, all right, you're going to be like all knees and elbows and punch, like things like that. You're more like a brawler going in close and trying to hit. So and it all worked out really, really great. They all stuck with it and they did a fantastic job, I thought. Like, I don't think that you can't really tell that they've never done anything in their life when you watch the movie.
Definitely not. That's, the biggest compliment I had, besides, the obviously I love the fact that it looks like an 80s film and here we are not in the 80s and people can do that. It's an amazing thing. But I thought the fight scenes were really great. I enjoyed it, man.
They were fun. Some days were very the thing on the roof towards the end was a weather, and also there was no steps to the roof, so we had to like climb this ladder to get up to the roof and carry all the equipment up. And then it was like 90 degrees the one day. It was pretty rough.
We called it a fire ladder, like that was inside. So like when you went up to it was on the 2nd or 3rd floor, there was a hatch with a ladder to get to the roof. That was the only way. So we had to like have someone up there and just pretty much relay all the equipment up onto the roof. Then everyone had to climb up, and
oh my god!
Then we'd be losing all of our like our blood and makeup as the sweating it off through the day. So then we'd have to climb back down the ladder, get reapplied, get back up. It was some days where, as you know from any filmmaker, it's a grind, but it's definitely in a unique challenge. We had one thing they were doing. In one scene, you see this kind of cool building in the background, and the next week we came back to finish that scene, and they'd blown up that building in the background. So we were like, okay, I guess we'll pan a little bit this way.
Dang, I
Yep.
hate when that happens, man. Not necessarily. It's not like a building gets blown up every time I go to film, but I always do notice little things, and I'm like, why?
And actually, another thing I was happy with on the rooftop fight was it was one where I notice a lot of times now people use drones in their movies, and they which is cool. It's great because it's great technique to like set up like, oh, we're driving down the road, or but I was like, you know what, we can actually do like helicopter style shots during the fights and get like real high crane looking or helicopter shots of them fighting from above, and that really made me excited to be able to do that.
Yeah, that adds a production value there when you're looking at the film. Even if it doesn't, even if it's not no extra money spent, people watching it, they always feel that way. Like, oh my God, they spent a lot to do that shot right there. Even though, like you said, you can do it with a crane. You don't even have to use the drone. So yeah, that's awesome. As far as filmmaking goes, man, what are your guys' strengths? Like the filming, the editing, the cinematography, the writing, the directing?
So I think we worked pretty well together, kind of complementing each other in different aspects. The writing came along pretty fast. We wrote it all in about a month or so of just kind of doing every other day writes and rewrites. And we have different voices, but I think we were able to kind of like build off each other enough and not kind of clash very much. Zane's very good with the lighting. You can talk about where your experience comes from that, but part of that 80s look is very much Zane pays a lot of attention to the stylistic lighting.
Yeah, I'd say that's where I probably excel is lighting and cinematography. It's I had to teach that stuff to myself. I mean, I worked with another guy and learned from him, but like I just from doing it and watching, paying attention to movies and stuff, because I figured if I'm not going to do it, like who else is going to do it? Like no one's just going to come to me and go, "Hey, I want to make your movie for you." So I was like, I try to do the lighting and the filming, and now I'm getting into the editing. In fact, I did a lot of the sound design in the movie with all the punches and things like that. So yeah, it's like that's where I think my strengths are. Also, like the writing is my favorite part, actually.
Yeah, and we kind of built off in the directing, kind of trading off. Like I come from more of a acting background. That's primarily what I do in the world, and so any scenes with like I always learned like with my scene partners to not give them notes and kind of alienate the connection or cause friction. So in scenes where I'm actually in it as a character, Zane handles most of those scenes from a directing standpoint, and then we kind of trade off when I'm not in it. But I think for us going into it, we just said, we'd met a lot of cool people along the way from other productions or in acting classes. And we had a couple new people to film, but for the most part, we just tried to go get who we thought was a very solid cast so that we wouldn't have to like over direct them and we could kind of just let them add their flavor to it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, man. I got a special group of people that I'm I don't want to say grooming, but I'll say that we're getting very tight at working together to where now I've got them lined up for the third feature, the fourth feature, and and they're just playing different characters in each film now. So it's
that makes sense. And I mean, yeah, in the indie world, it's so much like you only have so much of a budget to do things so many times, so you need people you can trust. So reworking with the same group, that's sort of Zane and I have worked on some things that he's directed, and then other things like you mentioned Justin Seaman, who's one of the producers on this, did The Barn too. We were both in that, working in different capacities. So we've just kind of ended up crossing paths a lot of times throughout.
That's really cool, man. And you guys are working on something right now. Do you got something else in the mix to come here very soon?
Yeah, we're working on it's a Halloween horror film called Treaters, and Chad is in that, and a couple of the girls, at least one of the girls from Forced to Fear is in that movie as well. No, a couple Ginny's in it too. So yeah, a couple of the girls from Forced to Fears and Treaters, and there's gonna be some fights in that too, but it's like a lot more. That one's more horror. It's sort of like hard to explain. It's kind of like Spookies meets like Vamp. Like it's wacky. There's a lot of stuff going on in it.
I explain it in probably the wrong way to say this, but as like my characters and and some of the other characters end up in like a Halloween ghoul town kind of things through
Yeah.
being stuck in there, and then it's sort of a race to get out of this town of creatures and monsters and things like that. So I'm just doing it in an acting capacity because I was really interested in the story and just kind of refocusing on just that without all of the extra things. And like Zane mentioned, Sable, who's one of the lead girls in Force to Fear, and Zane are taking the lead behind the scenes on that. And I don't know if you want to talk about the other thing we've got upcoming later in the year yet.
Yeah, we can. We have another one where it's like an anthology. It's called Terrors to Drive-In, and it's basically like these jerk off people break into the drive-in after hours because they got kicked out for being assholes, and they go in and they're like, oh, you know, they owe us a movie since we didn't get to watch the movie, so they find this reel and they put it on, and it's kind of like three different stories. It's like you're watching like three 80s horror films, but as they watch them, the villains come out of the screen kind of like demons and starts killing them off. But the fun thing is going to be like the individual movies that they're watching. I want them to really look like 80s. We got one called Devolution. One's called Night Shrieker, which is a monster movie, and then we're still working on there's like a zombie one. So you have like a slasher, a monster, and a zombie story. And then at the end, those things all come out and start coming after the people that broke into the drive-in.
I love that, man. I think that sounds really good and treaters. So, well, that's awesome, dude. If people want to follow you guys, man, where can they check you out?
For the most part, for me, it's on Instagram, either just at Chad Bruns is my personal account, but then I probably post more on the Force to Fear account. Obviously, it's pretty active with Force to Fear stuff, and then also just sharing updates on other projects within our same sphere on there as well.
You can follow me just at Zane Hershberger. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. We also have Silver Springs Films, which is the company we go under, so you can check there too. And then obviously, like Chad said, the Force to Fear Instagram and whatnot. So we're always posting stuff like BTS stuff and things like that. So there's always like people letting, so not everything, because like we want to keep things somewhat of a secret for I can't show the real good stuff, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was my big concern. The people from some of the cast probably got annoyed with me on Force to Fear. I was like, don't post any of the death scenes, don't post any of the fight scenes till we're ready. Please don't send it, a year before it's actually out there.
Yeah, you give your grand finale away, man. I mean, same thing. When I was putting the trailer together, I was like, every scene is freaking killer, man. For this new movie I'm getting ready to drop. And I was like, man, how do I show any of this? Because they're all the best scenes. But hey, man, I know you guys have a shoot here in a few minutes, so I just wanted to say thank you so much for jumping on here. I want to circle back around with you guys at some point, maybe when Readers or the other film towards the end of the year.
Absolutely.
No, we'll keep it a regular situation, man. So when you got some updates, just stay in the loop with me and stay on for 1 second here. But guys, definitely check them out. This is the Scream Scene. I'm Jody Dean. We post every other day here, live chat, live premiere. Make sure you comment, subscribe, make sure your notifications are on. But until next time, sweet nightmares.